So I guess, we've heard about clusters being in places where, we've heard about the ones in Sydney being connected to the submarine network cables. Submarine? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
You're right.
And, sort of places where there's good fibre optics, those kind of things. Why here? Why do you think that data centres want to set up in your shire?
I've heard it's because of the high rainfall.
Oh. Because of the cooling or because of... Right,
so
okay.
water storage.
So potatoes and data centres. Huh?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And this, going from like 16 megawatts to 600...
700.
To 700. How does that happen? Like, was this an honest underestimation by the proponent, or is this do you dare to...
Well, it wasn't proposed until the last 6 months, really. They lodged an application with the Planning Secretary for an SSD. Details, apart from their website, the SEERs and their scoping report, there's not much detail there, and obviously they're going through a process of a DA process for a deemed refusal in court. So we're dealing with that information.
Yeah.
But that is a DA on its own, 16 megawatt. So I suppose there's more information to come from the proponent when they do their EIS and if the application goes forward.
So the fact that they've already got a little bit of a footprint and they're running some diesel generators presumably already, does any of that help their process now when they're looking at this massive one in terms of like the planning pathways? Is it, if I was I'm just going to put it out there, if I was like trying to be a bit tricksy, I'd go in perhaps and sort of start up all the little ones and get my little ones approved, and then I would, having got that footprint, perhaps then go for the larger one, knowing that then I'm going to get a more favourable pathway. Do you think that that's...
I think what you're describing is not unusual in the development industry, regardless of proposed uses.
Very diplomatic answer, thank you. Did you want to ask? I guess what's next step then for the community? So I have seen there's quite a lot of backlash already. How, as council, do you try and, I guess, facilitate better consultation, or like what do you think your options are at this point?
So at the moment, we have a profile on our webpage to do with the site, and it simply directs readers to look at our DA tracker, which has all the details of the DAs, past and present, as well as the details of the SSD on the state government's website. And we had a notice of motion by one of the councillors in recent months that gained community interest as well, and council resolved to await the EIS to understand the project further, because there's a limited amount of information on the SSD at the moment. So it's hard for us professionally to recommend a position of council when there is such lack of information.
In your submission, you recognise that data centres are critical infrastructure, and I think we delved into that a little bit with previous witnesses around how much of it is critical and how much of it is not actually critical, and that in order to get community buy-in, there needs to be some element of the community understanding what they're giving up for. If you're going to have a massive gas-fired power station and a massive data centre in what I would view as a quite rural area, is it worth it? What is it being used for? So I guess, do you have any visibility over what this particular proponent is planning on using this particular data centre for?
The proponent's representations to me are based on data of varying customers, but particularly even government customers, federal government. But I'm not aware of the detail of that. And they've made representations to me because of those arrangements. They're accelerating and expanding their offering. That's their desire. In relation to the impact, I was out at the Section 34 LEC on-site conference this morning before it went back to council offices. There are hundreds of community members concerned. There were speakers addressing the Commissioner. Those speakers were specifically objectors to the DA, and they mentioned impacts to lifestyle, tourism, the speculative approach that business can have compared to what a resident or a local business can have in relation to entering or exiting or expanding offerings within the Shire, let's say. In relation to agriculture particularly, there was a nearby farmer talking about their farm and the numbers of cattle, the impact on our regional livestock exchange, which is growing in demand, and the reason why that's growing is because other livestock exchanges have closed, and so we have more head of cattle coming through that than ever before, record numbers. And this farmer was describing what they speculate would be the impact of them actually even being able to sell their cattle or raise it, simply because of the environmental impact based on the air quality and gas emissions associated with the gas-fired power plant.
Yeah, wow. One of the things we've not discussed in relation to this particular sort of potential data centre cluster, whatever we want to call that, the SHIP is what you refer to it as, is the water usage. What's the potential water usage of this project, have they said?
We've been assessing it on a DA by DA stage because the master plan for the site hasn't happened. So it is really difficult to assess what the cumulative impacts of water will be for this proposal. They do provide large rainwater tanks, which is obviously very beneficial as well, but there is still a reliance on our potable water supply.
Yeah, okay. I understand that Council has declared a climate emergency and adopted a community emissions action plan. Has there been an assessment yet as to how this particular project might impact on your ability to achieve that, or how it might influence the plan?
Well, in relation to our action plan, primary thing is to get to net zero and reduce carbon emissions. And I would say, based on the proposition to date of reliance on fossil fuels by the proponent, it's going in the opposite direction.
Gigantic gas plant was not part of your climate action plan.
No, not at all.
I'm so surprised. Right, very good. I think probably I'm winding up with my questions. So the final one is, are there any sort of wetlands around that area? Or are you concerned about if they're collecting rainwater, sort of how they're doing that, and whether that impacts then on the flows going elsewhere?
There is the Wingecarribee River, which is the main water source, natural water source for our Shire. We are catchments for Sydney Water, our Shire is. We are our own water and sewer authority. We carry out testing, etc. We're challenged by environmental issues like PFAS now, let alone air quality emissions that are would be, in my opinion, probably low in the atmosphere because of the altitude we're at and because of the weather conditions we face with fog and cloud, etc. So I'm no scientist by any means, but those types of things of how would the air quality sit in suspense and scatter and fall. it's sort of unknown questions. The site that we're referring to is actually adjoining C3 environmental zoning as well, and we do have 2 koala Connolly habitats in the Shire, and that represents 10% of New South Wales koala population. They're endangered, and we're at the same time we just resolved in council this week to write a koala plan of management, which can be legislated through what they call the koala SEP, and there's other animals, flora and fauna, which featured prominently in our Shire.
So a gas plant in a place with heavy rainfall is like a recipe for acid rain. It's like that's lovely. The other issue that we haven't heard much about is in relation to fire risk. Are you concerned at all in terms of the risk of fire at this site?
In relation to the specifics on fire, obviously you have facilities that generate high heat load and across different seasons, and in what would be, you described it yourself as, what would look like a pretty rural bushland setting. So obviously access and egress in relation to fire situations, the ability to have appropriate infrastructure, appropriate measures on site and with other industry around, and what that impact is, and the ability to respond 24/7, definitely. And when you're talking about what could potentially be the state's largest power plant, it escalates much higher, the risk.
Yeah, wow. It's extraordinary.